All right. This message is for white America. White America, you are not struggling with one plague, but two simultaneously. One is the opioid addiction, which we already know you can't get any control over. The second is meth. Both of these drugs are simultaneously plaguing the U.S. at this time. Okay, the leading cause of death in the US is from opioid addiction from white Caucasoid people 50 and under. All right, so you can talk about black on black crime and black on white crime, which is all laughable for you to even bring these things up when your community is being completely devastated by drugs. So you can sit there and be stupid all you want. But the bottom line is this whole epidemic in this country, you can't even control it. And nor can you control your people that are running out here after these drugs. So the way I see it, you don't have anything to say to anyone as long as you got this mess going on in your country. But it's amazing how y'all want to open your mouth to black people when you really have no right to do any of those things at all. Um, so really, this plague going on in the country is well known worldwide. There is no one on this planet that don't know about the bad drug addiction, horrific really, in the United States. While the numbers illustrate the magnitude of the problem, they can also mask the ways in which drug use and abuse is subject to local trends. For the Twin Cities, understanding contemporary drug policy means acknowledging that opioids are the beginning, though not necessarily the end, of law enforcement focus. Although the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area has seen a notable uptick of overdose deaths, the state has yet to see the grim totals making headlines in Appalachia. In 2014, 319 people died from opioid overdoses. Although the number seems low, it marks an increase of more than 500% since 1999. For years, heroin barely registered on law enforcement's radar in Minnesota. In 2008, the state reported fewer than 10 heroin overdose deaths. By 2015, it had more than 100. The scope of the problem has law enforcement on edge. Although heroin use is up nationwide and the supply of the drug in the Twin Cities has increased, the growth in heroin use has been dwarfed by the resurgence of interest in methamphetamines. Admission to treatment facilities for methamphetamine addiction began to rise in 2010 and quickly overtook the previous records established 10 years earlier. What we are seeing in the data is alarming. Methamphetamine's use is now second only to alcohol for treatment admissions in Minnesota, said the Department of Human Services Commissioner Emily Piper. Although methamphetamines has lost the culture cachet it had in the early 2000s when the health and safety hazard of living in or near a cookhouse where concerns for many residents, it has not lost its popularity. In May of 2016, police raided a home in Brooklyn Center and northwestern suburbs of Minneapolis and seized approximately 140 pounds of methamphetamines. It was the largest methamphetamine seizure in the state history and the result of a year-long investigation by a multi-county drug task force. So in Minnesota, they're getting slammed by the meth, and in a big way, apparently, in this particular state. But meth is actually growing all over the country. It's now right behind opioids as far as a plague is concerned. 488 pounds of methamphetamine seized by law enforcement in 2016 was nearly 5 times the amount confiscated in 2009. If 2009 marked a low point in the methamphetamine trade, 2016 shows that methamphetamines is again becoming a drug of concern. Not only did 2016 seizures set a new state record, they doubled the amount seized in 2015. In fact, in Minnesota, methamphetamine addiction is second only to alcohol abuse treatment admission, whereas in 2005, the previous peak, 6,703 people were admitted to treatment facilities around the state for methamphetamine addiction. By 2016, the number of admissions stood at 11,555, an increase of 72%. Wow, that's a big jump. The 2016 numbers showed the continuation of an upward spiral that began to accelerate in 2015, according to the state report on drug abuse trends in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, although heroin use accounted for the bulk of drug seizures, arrests, overdose, and admissions to treatment facilities. Methamphetamines was growing in popularity. Okay, methamphetamines was reported in 35% of all drug items seized by law enforcement in the 7-county metro area in 2015, and seizures statewide remained at heightened levels. The report continued. So, look like what they're saying is Minnesota seems to be the state that have the biggest amount of methamphetamines as far as a problem with trafficking and addiction to that drug. In the first 3 months of 2017, the same agency seized 118 pounds of drugs, a trend that, if it continues, would put seizures at more than 750 pounds by the end of the year. Wow. During the height of the previous methamphetamine epidemic, the drug was generally cooked up in local labs. So these are homes that they made into meth labs. And you know what the worst part is? Here in New Jersey, they sold these houses. And when people would move in, the whole family would immediately get sick. And by law, they're supposed to tell you if a house was once previously used as a meth house, but they're so desperate for money that they don't even tell these families anymore. And they don't find out until they move in and everybody gets sick, including the family pets. I have read these stories before. So you have to really just research before you make any purchases or even rent a house out, especially a house, because they're more notorious in doing this in a house than in an apartment. Okay. Unfortunately, um, so the meth is also sold at a very low cost, which is another reason why it's growing in popularity. The state officials are looking into several possibilities to explain this, including the lack of public awareness of the dangers of methamphetamine use and difficulty accessing heroin. People were aware of the dangers of methamphetamines. Um, Brian McCourt, statewide gang and drug coordinator of the Department of Public Safety, told the Minneapolis Star Tribune. For a variety of reasons, we had other drugs, whether to be synthetic, whether be it heroin, whether it be opiates, come to the forefront, that I think some that anti methamphetamine messaging has not been heard as loud as it should. Methamphetamines is bad. Taking advantage of federal programs which allow for cooperation between law enforcement agencies and different states. Minneapolis area law enforcement has been able to work with agencies in Wisconsin to shut down a pipeline bringing meth from Chicago into the Twin Cities. However, they realize that the fight is yet over, since new suppliers will crop up to replace those arrested and taken off the streets. And that's the same problem they're having with heroin. As soon as they arrest a whole bunch of people, there's always new people popping up and selling and trafficking the drug. So again, it doesn't matter what they do when they can't even win the battle on the street level. And we already know this from the heroin and opioid um, plague that's going on. But please tell me what you think in the comment section. Please leave your comments and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family.